What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's going on with Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to talk about the reaction from CPI that just came out and some other big pieces of news involving Tesla. But before I break anything down all this information, let me just mention a couple of things. Firstly, I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo and deposit $100 to the account, you are guaranteed up to 5 free stocks. If you deposit $1,000, you're guaranteed up to 15 free stocks, and this offer ends in just a couple of weeks. Anyways, now let's break down what's going on with the market. Looking at Tesla's things currently in the 230s right now, holding support. But the question is, can Tesla try to hold this? The market basically did the same thing as Tesla. We kind of like pushed. Now we're kind of dropping a bit. And this happened as a result of CPI coming out. So let's break down the numbers without further ado. So core CPI was up 0.3%. This is once again aligned with expectations. Core CPI year over year was at 3.9%, aligned with expectations. But the inflation rate for all items month over month was a little hot at 0.3%. We're expecting it to be around 0.2%, so somewhat hotter than expected. It's only by 0.1%, but still that is a slight increase. And that means that inflation year over year, or CPI year over year, was about 3.4% above expectations, so a little bit hotter than expected. Overall, core CPI was decent, but the overall CPI was slightly hotter. Right here, the purple line shows you core CPI a little bit below what we saw previously, so this is actually decent. But the overall CPI report, the blue line right here for all items, this was a bit high, so we saw a slight increase right over here. So you want to be very careful with that data. So now, with that being said, this is very important because when you look at the Fed's policies, the Fed was basically looking for potential cuts to be coming in March. Now the Fed can't say that with as much certainty. The Fed might have to keep rates higher for longer as a result of a somewhat harder than expected CPI. This could lead to uncertainty, more fear, and this is why it's a little negative for Tesla in the market. So we're going to find out what the Fed says as a result of this, but I don't think the Fed could say with certainty right now that, hey, we're going to cut rates in March for sure now. With inflation potentially coming back up again, they have to be very careful. This is a little negative for the market, so just be a little bit careful. For news affecting the markets, I just want to mention that the market was actually pumping in the pre-market. Now the market is slowing down just a bit, and we'll see how this market ends up opening. Don't forget, we have big earnings coming out for tomorrow. Earnings season will kick off tomorrow. I'll talk about that in just a minute. With inflation going up, we're seeing more and more economists out there who are going to be speaking more about these changes, and more Fed speakers. So just be very careful. We'll see what happens when it comes to what has to be done with the cuts, and we'll be watching to see any changes. On top of this, the SEC has basically approved the changes to the rules that allow for the creation of Bitcoin ETFs in the US. That is going to lead to more credibility for those assets. So that's big news. And then there's more news going on about how there have been more attacks in the Red Sea, which are causing shipping routes to change. This is important as well. This is affecting supply chains, so just be very careful. And that's pretty much it for now when it comes to the main news affecting the markets. Don't forget, tomorrow, which is Friday, we have JP Morgan, Delta, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, and all the big bank earnings. And then for Tesla, we're seeing some news coming out that Tesla's getting into the gym equipment with a possible cyber hammer. So this is actually kind of cool. We'll see if this comes out, but there's some reports saying that this could be coming out one day. As far as Tesla goes, excuse me, sorry guys, I apologize about that. Audi's also just a little bit above Tesla in sales. I'm seeing some headlines talking about this in this comparison. So this is just makes Tesla look more impressive because Tesla is a much newer company. Looking at how Tesla's sales have been slightly increasing, while Audi's were very consistent. Tesla's eventually going to surpass Audi and all these other companies, but I just want to mention that very, very impressive stuff for Tesla. So anyways, now let's talk about the charts. How are things looking thus far? Tesla's looking kind of weak. We actually popped and then dropped. Watch resistance at 232, 234, 236.6, followed by 238 and 240. Watch support at 230, followed by 228, 226.6, 225, and 223.5. Tesla's barely holding 230. It looks very weak right now, especially because it's weak relative to the market. So there's a very good chance Tesla is going to just fight to hold this 230 area for some time, and we might lose and see some touches of 228 in these lower levels. There could be more selling coming to Tesla. It looks bearish overall, and that's especially because on the on the daily, Tesla has lost the daily 200 EMA. So it's a little bit of a bearish signal. So unfortunately, it favors the bears a bit more. We're going to be watching to see if Tesla can try to hold 230. And if we lose this, these lower levels could be tested, the levels I called out down here. So watch it very carefully. The odds favor the downside. Tesla's looking very weak. As far as SPY goes, we're still green in the pre-market, but I just want to warn everyone to be careful on SPY between 478 to 480. That's where we have some tight resistance. We're still kind of close to that area. We're still trying to hold above this yellow trend line right here. We'll see if we get an official break today or tomorrow. If we break this yellow trend line, we're going to turn back to bearish, and 474 is going to be our target. I believe the 474s are coming soon. But this might actually chop around a bit between, the current level we're at. We're currently just under 477. We might chop around a bit. They might try to grab some liquidity up here again. So don't be surprised if they try to pop us again before we drop. But ultimately, I think that after this CPI, by next week, we might see SPY retrace a bit back down to at least 474, if not below this. So be prepared for that just to be safe. Watch and see if we lose this yellow trend line for confirmation, and watch your levels. Right now, we have resistance at 477 to 477.5, 478 and 480. We have support at 475. If we lose this, our next target is going to be 474, 472.9, 472 flat, 471.6. And then if we lose that, I think it's going to come very close to basically 470, then 468. Those are a bunch of supports which are worth noting. But we're going to be watching if this could shop around and hold for a little bit longer before we start to sell off to 474. I still anticipate some downsides, so just be a little bit careful. We might see some choppy price action first anyways. On the QQQ, it's basically the same thing. Now, the QQQ has this rising wedge-like pattern, so be very careful with it. We have resistance between 409 to 410, 412 and 413, support at 408, 405.7, 404, 402, and 399.6. QQQ might push a little bit, chop around a little bit, but then we might see a later sell-off back down to 406 or so over the next couple of days. Not saying it all has to happen today. It may happen by next week. So, once again, this could be an opportunity for people out there. I think that they're grabbing liquidity up here, so it could push back up again, but eventually we're going to see this thing sell off later on, possibly by next week. So I do want you all to be very, very careful, and just know we could see some downside later on. What's helping Nvidia push, not Nvidia, the QQQ hold up is Nvidia. It's currently testing 550, but I just want to note that at this 550 area, we have resistance. If we break this, watch 551.6, 552.5, and then 555. And if we break above that, our next target is going to be around like 558. But these are just psychological levels. If we end up losing support, because we actually have a gap to fill, so there's a good chance Nvidia is going to drop. It might push up, grab liquidity, and then come back down towards, I think, 545. And if we lose that to fill this gap, 542 is coming back again to 540, which means Nvidia might kind of pop and drop soon over the next few days, which could drag the QQQ down. So look for a little pop and drop like move. That's very possible, and we might see this thing sell off just a bit. Finally, for Aapl, this is going to be the last one I talk about. I'm trying to be kind of quick here. Aapl has resistance around 186.25 to 186.5, and above that we have 180, basically 188. For support, watch 185.58, 185, 184.25, and 183.5. This might push a little bit higher. We might see Aapl then start to chop around a bit after doing so, but later on I see this imbalance down here getting filled at 184.75 and some more downside after that back to the 184s. So I think in the future, it may take a couple of days to pan out. We might see this thing sell off a bit, but for the short term, it's trying to hold up. It's still trying to chop. So watch and see if it holds support. We have a nice looking cup and handle like structure, but technicals are not everything. CPI might trump this, so be very, very careful, guys, and just know there's a risk of some selling in the market later on. All right, that's it for this one. Make sure you watch the very important support levels I called out on Tesla. It's still barely above 233. Sorry, not 233, 230. So we will see if Tesla holds or not. So watch support and resistance. Be very careful in a market like this. And I will see you guys very soon on the next one. Thank you for listening, and peace out.